On the 4th of December, 1872, a ship's crew spotted something wrong on the horizon. A two-masted brigantine, sails half set and badly trimmed, drifting with no hand at the wheel. When they finally drew alongside and called out, nobody answered. When they finally climbed aboard, they found a ship in near perfect order, and not a single living soul on it. The captain was gone. His wife was gone. Their 2-year-old daughter was gone. 7 crewmen were gone. Their sea chests were still in their cabins. A woman's sewing machine sat mid-stitch on the table. 6 months of food and water sat untouched in the hold. And the ship's only lifeboat was missing, as if everyone aboard had simply chosen to leave a perfectly floating vessel for open ocean. This is the true story of the Mary Celeste, one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in maritime history, and a case that investigators, sailors and writers have never fully closed. Welcome back to Unsettled, the channel where we go looking for the moments history tried to forget. Today we're going out to sea, to the Atlantic Ocean between the Azores and the coast of Portugal, to a case that has puzzled sailors, investigators and writers for more than 150 years. The Mary Celeste wasn't found in a storm, and she wasn't found sinking. She was found sailing herself, calmly, across open water, completely abandoned. No bodies were ever recovered. No wreckage, no distress signal, no struggle. Just an empty ship, still seaworthy, still carrying most of her cargo, with every sign that her crew had left in a hurry, and every sign that they hadn't needed to. By the end of this video, you'll understand the leading theory investigators eventually settled on, why an official court came dangerously close to accusing the wrong people of murder, and why even now, this case is still technically open. Let's start at the beginning, on a New York pier in November of 1872.
On November the 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York Harbour, bound for Genoa, Italy. At the helm was Captain Benjamin Briggs, an experienced and well-regarded sailor from a respected New England seafaring family, known among his peers for caution rather than recklessness. With him were his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. Briggs had brought his family aboard before on other voyages, and by all accounts, this was a normal, unremarkable choice for the family, not an unusual risk. Rounding out the crew were 7 sailors, all of them described afterward as competent, sober, and experienced men, with no history of trouble at sea or conflict with one another. In the ship's hold sat 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, industrial-grade spirits bound for Italian wineries, where the alcohol would be used to fortify wine before bottling. It was a routine cargo run, the kind Briggs had made many times before on a ship he knew well. Nothing about the departure suggested anything unusual was coming. The crossing began exactly as expected. Clear weather, an experienced crew, a captain who had made this exact voyage before. Until, roughly 4 weeks later, it simply stopped being logged at all.
On the 4th of December, nearly a month after the Mary Celeste left New York, a British brigantine called the Dei Gratia spotted her drifting several hundred miles from the Azores. Her sails were partially set, but poorly trimmed, and she was yawing unpredictably, the unmistakable signature of a ship with nobody actually steering her. The captain of the Dei Gratia, David Morehouse, knew Benjamin Briggs personally. The 2 men had dined together in New York shortly before both ships set sail on the same ocean crossing, only days apart. Concerned by what he was seeing through his glass, Morehouse sent a boarding party across in a small boat. What they found
has been picked apart by investigators, historians, and novelists ever since. The ship was in surprisingly good condition. There was some standing water in the hold, and the main hatch cover had been removed and left on deck. But the Mary Celeste was, by every practical measure, still seaworthy.
The ship's log offered one more piece of the puzzle and one more layer of confusion. The final entry was dated November the 25th, 9 full days before the Dei Gratia found her, and it recorded nothing unusual. Routine navigational notes placing the Mary Celeste near Santa Maria Island in the Azores, well on course for Gibraltar and the Mediterranean beyond. No storm was mentioned, no emergency, no injury, no conflict between crew members. Whatever happened to the 10 people aboard the Mary Celeste happened sometime in that 9-day gap, after a completely ordinary log entry, and left behind no written record of what it was. When the Dei Gratia's crew sailed the abandoned ship into port at Gibraltar to formally claim salvage rights, the case landed in front of the Vice Admiralty Court, and it was there that the mystery briefly curdled into something closer to accusation. The Attorney General overseeing the inquiry, a man named Frederick Soleil Flood, became convinced almost immediately that foul play was involved, and spent weeks pursuing theories that ranged from mutiny to murder to an elaborate insurance fraud cooked up in advance between the two ships' crews. Investigators combed the Mary Celeste for bloodstains, weapon damage, and any sign of a struggle. They found essentially nothing to support any of it. 9 of the 1,701 barrels of alcohol were later discovered to be empty, most likely from ordinary evaporation and slow leakage through porous red oak staves, rather than anything sinister or deliberately staged. In the end, after months of scrutiny and formal hearings, the crew of the Dei Gratia was fully cleared of any wrongdoing, though the court still awarded them an unusually small salvage payment, a decision widely seen at the time as a lingering, unofficial expression of suspicion the investigators could never actually prove in open court. What almost everyone eventually ruled out was as important as what remained genuinely unexplained. Piracy made little sense. Valuables, money, and most of the cargo was still aboard. Pirates don't typically leave a ship worth salvaging almost entirely untouched. Mutiny made little sense either. The crew had strong reputations, no recorded history of conflict, and no plausible motive investigators could ever identify, even after months of digging into every man's background. And a storm severe enough to force 10 people to abandon ship in a panic, yet leave the Mary Celeste undamaged and still calmly floating weeks later, simply didn't fit the physical evidence at all. What was left was something stranger, a ship that appeared to have been abandoned in a controlled, deliberate way by people who genuinely believed they had no other choice and who never got the chance, or never survived long enough, to be proven right or wrong about that decision. The modern theory that many maritime historians now find most convincing centers on that cargo of industrial alcohol. Denatured alcohol can gas off fumes, especially when a wooden ship is rolling and creaking in rough seas, and if enough vapor built up in the sealed hold, an anxious and cautious captain like Briggs might reasonably have feared an imminent explosion. Under that theory, Briggs may have ordered everyone into the yawl as a precaution, intending to stay close to the ship on a tow line until the danger passed and the hold could be safely vented, only for the line to snap or the small, overloaded boat to be swamped in worsening weather, far from any help, leaving the Mary Celeste to drift on alone while her crew was lost at sea nearby, close enough to almost see their own ship sailing on without them. It's worth remembering, too, that behind the maritime puzzle were 10 actual people who never came home. Sarah Briggs had written to her mother-in-law from her own cabin quarters in a letter carried back on an earlier port call, describing her small daughter playing on deck and her husband in good spirits about the voyage. An entirely ordinary letter from an entirely ordinary family, with no hint of what was coming weeks later. Search parties along the Azorian coastline in the weeks after the discovery found nothing. No bodies, no wreckage of the missing yawl, no debris that could be tied to the Mary Celeste. In an era before radio distress calls or organized air and sea rescue, an open boat lost in worsening weather hundreds of miles from the nearest shore would likely have vanished completely and left no evidence behind for a court, a search party, or a documentary crew a century and a half later. The Mary Celeste herself, ironically, sailed on for another 13 years after the incident that made her famous, and by most accounts, those years were almost as strange as the mystery itself. No captain wanted to command her. She passed through roughly 17 different owners, several of whom went bankrupt or suffered unusual losses soon after taking her on. Sailors reportedly refused postings aboard her, considering the ship cursed. Her final captain, in 1885, deliberately ran her aground on a reef off the coast of Haiti in a clumsy attempt at insurance fraud, a scheme that was quickly discovered, ending the ship's career in disgrace rather than mystery. It's a strange, almost darkly fitting postscript, a vessel that had already outlived one unexplained tragedy, finally destroyed on purpose by someone trying to profit from her ruin. It's worth saying plainly, the explosion theory from the original voyage is still the leading explanation, not a confirmed one. No wreckage of the yawl was ever found, no bodies ever washed ashore on any of the nearby islands, no survivor ever came forward with an account in a case that predates radio, satellite tracking, and virtually any of the forensic tools a modern investigation would rely on. Much of what the public thinks it knows about the Mary Celeste isn't even accurate to begin with. A wildly embellished short story published anonymously in 1884 by a young doctor and writer named Arthur Conan Doyle, more than a decade before he created Sherlock Holmes, added invented details that readers have mistaken for documented fact ever since, including a fictional half-eaten breakfast still warm on the table, a detail that never once appeared in any actual investigation record from Gibraltar. Strip away the fiction, and what's left is genuinely stranger for being so mundane. A well-maintained ship, a competent and trusted crew, an unremarkable log entry 9 days before discovery, and then nothing. No struggle, no storm damage, no trace of the 10 people who left her. Just an empty deck, a missing lifeboat, and a sewing machine that never got to finish its seam. More than 150 years later, the Mary Celeste is still technically an open case, a ship that sailed on perfectly well without anyone left alive to steer it, and a silence at the center of the story that no theory, however reasonable, has ever been able to fully explain away.